This is DoNotCiv, and this video is going to be about peak oil. I'm going to play an interview between Jim Puplava of Financial Sense News and Robert L. Hirsch, one of the most highly respected energy analysts in the world today. I'm going to make some introductory comments. If you'd rather skip right to the interview, I've put a link down below. Click that. It'll take you directly to the interview. First, just to go through Mr. Hirsch's bio. His experience is broad and wide. He has more executive experience with oil companies and think tanks than virtually anybody else I've come across in the industry. A number of senior advisors, senior analyst positions, vice president of a number of companies, founder and CEO of a number of companies. He was manager of Exxon's Synthetic Fuels Research Laboratory, and very impressive. And something I didn't know about him, he was actually involved in nuclear fusion research. He was director of fusion research at the U.S. Atomic Energy Commission and ERDA, which that was surprising. I did not know that. His most recent book is The Impending World Energy Mess, published 2010. He's got more publications and awards than you can shake a stick at, over 50 publications in the energy field, 14 patents. He was awarded the M. King Hubbard Award in 2009 by ASPO USA. Just unmatched credentials when it comes to oil and energy in general. Compare this with some of the crackpots that you see out there telling us there's no such thing as peak oil, lunatics whose only credentials is that they had a prayer meeting with Mr. X in Anchorage, front companies and shills for the oil companies such as Cambridge Energy Research Associates, SARA, and other peak oil deniers out there. Compare the credentials of people like that versus Robert Hirsch, and you'll see there is no comparison. So this guy knows whereof he speaks, and what he speaks of in this interview is serious. To use, well, the urban vernacular, this shit is about to get real. Now, according to most estimates by most energy analysts and highly respected energy agencies like the IEA, we passed peak oil in 2006, the global peak. And for the last 5 years, we've been on what's called the bumpy plateau. Well, we're about to go sailing right off of that plateau onto the backside of the Hubbard curve, and nobody knows for sure how steep it's going to be. What Hirsch talks about in this interview, and he states this in the clearest possible terms, is that the effects on society are going to be profound, and they could, in fact, be brutal, depending on whether you take the best case, middle case, or worst case scenario. The best case scenario is nothing to sneeze at. It's very serious. And the worst case is something approaching Mad Max. So this is very serious, and the public is not aware of what's going on. Industry has made no effort, as Hirsch will talk about in this interview. They've demonstrated no courage in standing up and admitting to the problem. Of course, our politicians are utterly clueless. Now, Obama was talking to T. Boone Pickens prior to his election, and Pickens gets it, and Pickens was trying to educate him on, the breadth and scope of the problem of peak oil, and Obama was, having virtually no knowledge of the subject matter, was concerned about how to keep the cars going, and he broached some electric car scenarios, and Pickens was very patient. He explained, well, okay, you make 1 million electric cars, that puts like a 1% dent in the problem. And Obama's smart, he got it, but I don't know whether it's his handlers, whatever, his staff. As soon as he was elected, he stopped talking to Pickens and went right back to trying to maintain the status quo, which is what we've got across the board. Our time remaining in which to indulge in fantasies and denial has come to an end, and we are now about to go off that peak oil plateau, as I said, and down the other side of the Hubbard curve. And I don't know what we can do about it at this point. Really, we should have started preparing for this in the 1970s. And you know who was the person who started this, and you guys all hated him, was Jimmy Carter. He put, and I could see people groaning right now, oh, Carter. Yeah, well, he put solar water heaters on the roof of the White House, and the first thing Reagan did when he was elected is rip them off. And we went back to the Dark Ages and denial. No pun intended. Well, so that was the time to start. If we had started this 40 years ago in the 1970s, we'd be much better prepared for this right now. Now, so we're at the end of our rope, at the end of the tether, and we've done virtually nothing about nothing. All we have in terms of options at this point are some pie-in-the-sky fantasies. I'm sorry if that sounds that sounds like a derogatory comment and rude, but the people who think we're going to run the world on windmills and solar panels and used French fried potato oil are silly. You're indulging in childish fantasies. I hate to put it that way, but there's no other way to put it. But assuming you were right, assuming that, these beautifully photoshopped and airbrushed pictures that you have of this future idyllic world with beautiful, lovely skyscrapers and boats sailing around, and yes, I'm talking about the Venus Project, the Zeitgeist movement. Assuming that silly Fantasyland reality could be achieved, which it can't, but assuming that it could, well, you gotta start building out the power grid, right? You gotta start putting in the solar panels, you gotta start putting in the wind farms, and what have we done in that regard? Nothing, right? We have thousands of square miles of desert where we could put solar panels. Do you see any of that going in? No, right? Do you see any attempt to build out your Venus project? No. And we've run out of time. Okay, what we should have done at a minimum these last 5 years while we were on this bumpy plateau is at least start the planning phase of this. At least do that. At least draw up the blueprints. We didn't even do that. We're totally and completely unprepared for what's about to hit us. That's really it in a nutshell. And if you understand peak oil, if you really understand it, I don't mean you just heard about it once. If you really understand it, you, by now, would have gone through an entire range of psychological ups and downs and emotional experiences. You probably would have started with denial. Then you would have gone to anger, right? Then you would have gone to the various escapist philosophies, which is what's called bargaining, the Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, 5 rungs of grief. It's called the bargaining mode. Well, if we just converted all the cars to natural gas and, put in windmills and Altamont Pass and enough solar panels, we could really make this thing work, and we don't have to reduce our quality of life at all, and we could live just the way we're living now. Heck, it might even be better. That's the bargaining mode. That's kind of just Fantasyland nonsense, and that's where most of the Zeitgeisters are. I'm sorry, guys. Sorry. I have nothing against wind and solar. I say do it. Go wind, go solar, but you waited too long. You waited too long, and now, as the oil starts to run out, it's debatable whether we're going to have the resources and infrastructure in society to embark upon these projects that you want to build, right? Once the oil starts running out, people are going to be concerned about things like food production and food delivery, and how do I keep the refrigerator running and the lights on, right? Nobody's going to have time to think about Venus Project. It's going to be about survival, right? How do I get to work in the morning, right? So we just waited too long. We waited too long. And where to go from here? I don't know. I don't know that education at this point, the educational process for the bulk of people, granted there's more peak oil videos on YouTube now than there ever have been at any point in time in the past, but what is education going to do at this point? It's okay, you're going to make people aware of the problem, but As Hirsch talks about in this interview, nobody in industry is taking the lead. Nobody in politics is taking the lead. I mean, where's the change going to come from, and who's going to drive it, I guess, is the question. I can see, really at this point, only one way out. But before I state that only one way out that I see, I want to go over a few facts first before I do that. What we have now, because we lived in denial for so long, and because we procrastinated and did nothing for so long, what we have now, and this is a measure of your maturity, and whether you're an adult or whether you're a child who wants to go play with the Tinker Toys in the backyard, what we have now is a list of unpleasant options, beginning at unpleasant, going to very unpleasant and painful, and then brutal. Okay, that's the range of options that we have at this point. You say, well, take senators like Ted Kennedy, who didn't want a wind farm in his backyard because it would have obstructed his view. Or Dianne Feinstein. I'm not trying to pick on Democrats here. I hate politics, but, Dianne Feinstein doesn't want solar panels, doesn't want wind farms because they're unsightly, or, kill birds, or put lizards in the shade. And I get that, and they are unsightly. I understand that. And they do kill birds. I get that. But she doesn't want oil drilling because there's a risk, you're going to walk on the beach and get tar on your feet, or I don't know. I'm not trying to pick on her in particular, but what I'm saying is that, by and large, the state of mind among most politicians and the general public is, it's all bad, right? We don't want any more of anything. We don't want any oil drilling. We don't want any coal-fired power plants. We don't want windmills. We don't want solar panels. We don't want anything. But we do like it when the lights come on. And obviously we don't want nukes. Right. Well, okay. All right. You don't want anything. Fair enough. Make a choice. Make a choice. What do you want to do? You want to go back to 1850s lifestyle, world made by hand? Ox and plow, mule and plow, cooking food over a wood fire at night? Is that what you want? Oh no, we don't want that. Well, what do you want? You want your lights to come on? Yeah, we like when lights come on. You want your refrigerator running? Yeah. You like heat? Yeah. Like air conditioning in the South? Yeah. Okay. Those metal lines outside your house where the power flows, goes into your house, you've seen those, right? Yeah. Well, there has to be a power plant hooked up to one end of those to supply the power. Doesn't take a lot of intelligence to put two and two together to figure that out, right? If you don't want anything, where's the power going to come from? Okay? As I said, all you have now is a long list of unpleasant choices, and you're going to have to choose. You either reduce your quality of life, tear down civilization, go back to 1850s, or you make some unpleasant choices, right? You better start doing something. You don't like coal, and I don't like coal because it puts mercury in the atmosphere. Fish now is so poisoned, it's dangerous to eat more than 1 can of tuna a week. And really, for pregnant mothers and children, you shouldn't even eat that much, maybe 1 can a month. That's how much mercury is out there in the fish. So obviously, more coal-fired power plants creates more problems. Well, we could perhaps, there's ways to pre-scrub the coal to pull out a lot of the mercury and heavy metals out of the coal before it's burned. And you can put scrubbers in the smokestacks of the coal plants. You can clean it up. You can't eliminate everything, but you can clean it up. But that's going to make the power more expensive. Okay? That might be a reality we have to face. If you want all the windmills and solar panels, nothing wrong with that, but you better get busy building them. And you better start modifying the electrical grid. And if you want to do something about the fact that our entire transportation fleet runs on liquid fuels, and you say, well, we've got lots of natural gas, okay, but you better start doing something about it. You see what I'm saying? I mean, this isn't like Monty Python in Life of Brian. Remember when Brian was crucified and John Cleese says, right, this calls for an immediate meeting and discussion. No, go cut Brian down, right? This is so obvious, I don't even know why I need to talk about it. But apparently, 80-90% of society doesn't get it. Doesn't get it, You're gonna have to do something. Doing nothing is only going to make the problem worse. Instead of getting to pick from the least worst or the middle worst of the options, doing nothing means you have to pick from the worst case scenario. Right? This isn't hard. It shouldn't be that hard. But I don't know. People just don't get it. They want to listen to lunatic Baptist ministers who say we've got 200 years of oil on the North Slope of Alaska, and there's no such thing as peak oil. Or they want to believe that we can liquefy really low-grade shale called Keragen and we get all our oil from that. Or they want to believe we go drill at the North Pole. That's almost as ridiculous as believing in Santa Claus. I don't know where... And you say, well, what about nuclear fusion? Okay, what about it? We've got one experimental research facility, one, in Livermore, right? Working on laser inertial confinement fusion, right? And people bitched up a storm that we spent $3.5 billion on one research facility. If you were serious about nuclear fusion, we'd have a dozen of these plants. We'd have 20 of these plants, and they would be extensible, meaning that once we solved the scientific and engineering challenges of fusion, we could convert that plant over to commercial power production and tie it into the grid, like what they're doing with the ITER in France. All right? In the entire world, we've got 2 plants devoted to fusion research. And like I said, taxpayers bitched up a storm that the plant caused the NIF cost $3.5 billion. Well, whoop-de fucking shit. We spent, $84 billion bailing out AIG, and what did we get out of that? And how much? What did we spend bailing out the banks? $1 trillion? 2? And what did we get out of that? Nothing. Nothing for humanity, nothing for society. You people, you've got your priorities so bass-ackwards, upside down, stood on its head. I say you people. I know, most of the people listening to this aren't those you people, but the bulk of our society is you people. They're just ostriches, head in the sand. Well, so our time for these little detours into Fantasyland, Venus Project, and denial, and listening to crackpots who deny peak oil and think it's all going to be solved with prayer meetings. We're at the end of our tether. Run out of rope. Right? Broken the rope, actually. And now we're going to go sailing off the peak oil bumpy plateau right down the backside of the Hubbard curve. And baby, this is going to be one wild ride. Let me tell you, this is going to be a wild ride. It's what people don't get when you reduce, and you'll hear Robert Hirsch talk about this, if you reduce, just as a hypothetical, the worldwide oil production by 3 to 5%. That doesn't mean prices at the pump go up 3 to 5%. That is not the way it works. Supply and demand versus price are not inversely proportional. They're inversely asymptotic. You decrease worldwide oil production by 5%, and at that point people recognize the reality. Gas prices don't go up $1 a gallon. They double. You go from paying $3, $4, $5 a gallon to $8, $9, $10 a gallon. Yeah, that's how it works. Because remember, that's how it worked in 2008. Only this time it's going to be even worse, because this time we're going to know, oh wow, the shit really is getting real. Shit really has hit the fan, and there ain't no fixing it this time, right? There's no more bumpy plateau. There's just one, what does Hirsch call it? A monotonic direction. There's just one monotonic, or he calls it a monatomic. One monatomic decline, and it's unidirectional, and it's down. Right? What the derivative is, the slope, who knows? Maybe it's, if we're lucky, it's 30 degrees. But maybe it's 45, and maybe it's 60 or more. Right? And it seems the very best we can do is have useless discussions around the round table. Remember like that opening in Road Warrior where the guy is doing a way back look into history, and he's talking about how it all started, how the Mad Max Road Warrior reality came to be, and it all started with the problems with the black fuel, the black juice, you know. The pump jacks ceased to turn, and the leaders gathered around their tables, and he said they talked and talked and talked. But the machinery ground to a halt, and it led to conflicts, and it led to war. And this time, this ain't going to be a nice war, right? This ain't going to be your made-for-TV war, Desert Storm, that you can watch with a burrito in one hand and a beer in the other, and laugh and chuckle as the bunker buster bombs come down on Baghdad. This is going to be more along the lines of Terminator Judgment Day. This is going to go nuclear, or it has the very real possibility of going nuclear. If you watch that video with that Russian general on Russia TV, he said that since the middle of 2011, the Russians have been trying to warn the United States about not invading Iran. Because they've gamed out the scenario, as I'm sure, we're intelligent too. It's probably why we haven't invaded Iran, because we listened to them, took their advice, or heeded their warnings. Because they've gamed out the scenario on both sides, and they realize where this is going to head. It's going to head to global war, global conflict. Once the dominoes start falling, there will be no stopping it. It's too close to the borders with Russia for comfort. They'll have to get involved. They'll have no choice but to get involved. Right? Our solution to the energy crisis, the imminent reduction of fossil fuels, including liquid, and in particular liquid fuels, our answer to date to that has been to go invade some other country, right, and take their oil, or at least secure the supply lanes, right? Is there anybody who doubts that? I mean, that's why we're in Iraq? Of course not. It's all about oil. But that's not going to work anymore. Because there's just less and less of oil out there. You can't, your answer to your oil supply chain problems cannot continue to be go invade another country and tap their wells. That's just not going to work anymore. It's not working now. Hell, anymore, it's not working now. And as I said, all we have is a list. We have a bunch of sticky backs up on the brainstorming whiteboard, and they're all not so bad to very bad, going from left to right choices. And we've got to pick from some of those. And a measure of your maturity is whether if you recognize the problem. Have you accepted the reality of peak oil? All right. B, if you're willing to recognize that some tough choices have to be made at this point. I'm not trying to point you in a particular direction. I'm just saying some tough choices have to be made at this point. You can't continue to support 7 billion people on the earth with the energy supply running out. It ain't going to work, folks. You can't grow the food, and if you could grow the food, you can't fertilize it or put the herbicides and insecticides and pesticides on it. And if you can do that, you can't get the food to the distribution centers, to process the food, to get it to the warehouses, put it on the semi-trucks, get it to the stores. The whole system comes crashing down without the liquid fuels to support the production and distribution of the food. So you're not going to be able to support 7 billion people on the earth. It ain't happening. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. An entire way of life goes bye-bye. Unless there's some miraculous, and I'm being facetious here, but I'm being facetious to prove a point. Unless there's some miraculous deus ex machina, God comes down, with a hand wheel crank from the sky and fixes the whole thing, which, unfortunately, there are millions of people who believe that. Millions of schizophrenics, Christophrenics who believe that. They believe in the rapture. They believe that God's going to come down and Jesus is going to fix this and rule over everything with an iron rod. There's absolutely no help for people like that. And I don't know how much of a percentage of society they make up, but a hell of a lot. A hell of a lot. So those people, there's no point even talking to them. Right? They're not going to help. They're part of the problem, and they're going to continue to be part of the problem. So that leaves the rest of us, dragging not just ourselves up the hill, but their lazy, ignorant asses up the hill as well. I don't know. The whole, to be honest, where I'm at this point, I'm kind of at where I started at with this channel, thinking that really we've passed the tipping point for civilization and there really is no hope. I don't know, if you can see hope, say something down below about it, say, or better yet, make a video response. If you see a way out of this, yeah, I'd like to hear it. But, I just don't see any way out. We've gone too far. Absolutely raped, polluted the planetary ecosystem. Nothing. There's not a single river, stream, or lake that's safe to drink out of. We've destroyed 90% of the fish in the ocean. We've toxified the ocean with all kinds of plastics and chemical waste and fertilizer runoff, and now radiation from Fukushima. I mean, it's hell. I don't even think we need to. Assuming hell is a real place, there's no need for it. It's redundant. We're in hell. We've created it here on Earth. We've created hell right here on Earth. Some cities are so, for whatever reason, they're so polluted. The amount of oxygen that people breathe has been depleted, right? There's like 1%. Oh shoot, what's the ratio of oxygen to nitrogen? I should know this. 21% oxygen. In some of these cities, there's like 2-3%, like Chicago, less oxygen to breathe. Just as one example, I don't know. I mean, you could just go on and on and on and on about this, about how we, about what a fucking mess we've made of this planet. And how are we going to get out of this? How are we going to get out? How are we going to get out? I don't see it. I don't see any way out. I just think these are the last years of humankind on this planet. The experiment is about to end, is the way I look at it. Now, at the conclusion of this interview, Hirsch says he has hope. He's a very smart man. I personally don't like using words such as hope, I think their hope is a decadent word. It's a, I'm not trying to criticize Robert Hirsch. I think he's very smart. I have a lot of respect for him, nothing but respect. But I don't like using words like hope. It's a hopeless word. I mean, I had a, well, I don't want to go into that, but, are we going to trust to hope? Is that what we're trusting in to save us? Hope? Come on, that's no better than what, these religious fundamentalists and Pentecostalists and Baptists do. Trusting to hope? Come on. That's not a sound methodology. That's not a sound strategy. No. I prefer you make a realistic assessment and you take as much into consideration as you can, you be as objective as you can, and then you make your decision. You make your predictions based on current trends for where things are headed, and that to me is sane and rational, not trusting to hope. And based on that, I see this whole thing just crashing down. Like I say, unless there's some miraculous development in energy in particular, that some new, really high net flux source of high net flux energy density like nuclear fusion, barring that, I just don't see this system continuing for much longer. And you know what? As I talked about in the very first video, even if you're granted that gift of unlimited energy, you still have the basic problem of the human mind, the human psyche, and the fact that we've been stalled from an evolutionary development point of view for quite a while now. I mean, post-written history, we've had 3,000 years to try to get this right, and we're just not getting it right, we're just not improving. We're just going around making more and more messes, more and more problems, kind of fix them a little bit, halfway fix them, and then just keep creating problems, and here we are. And which leads to all of this. So, I don't know. I would like to point to something that I could, it doesn't even have to be 100% confidence. I would like to point to something with even, partial confidence that I could say, this might work. But I don't see it. And, I think life for the average person is going to get very tough. The standard of living and quality of life for most of us is going to get very tough in the near future. And for the poorest on this planet, well, that's a good point. Who's going to suffer the most? If you take like a Maasai tribesman, and all they depend on is their herd of cows, they might be completely unaffected, or some tribe of Indians living in the Amazon who's off-grid, they might be the ones who survive the best, It might be the middle class and the upper middle class that bears the brunt of this, if you think about it. The people who don't depend on the power grid or on the conveniences of modern life, why should they be affected? Now, obviously, if you push button, we push button. If that happens, well, then everybody's fucked, right? Then if it's global thermonuclear war, then it doesn't matter if you're a tribesman on the plains of Africa or if you live in New York City. We all go down together. What's that song by Tom Lehrer? We will all burn together when we burn. There'll be no need to stand and wait your turn. When the skies become Uranus, we will all go simultaneous. Yeah. Funny song. Well, that's it. Okay, so I don't know what else I have to, I'm drained, I'm all spent, I'm ranted out here. Obviously now this is too long to tack on the interview with Hirsch, so I'll make that a separate, video, and I'll put a link to it. What can I say? You know, it is what it is. It is what it is. If you want to oppose this with some happy talk and do a video with, you know, doing a point counterpoint, yeah, sure, I'll watch it. Why not? You know, at this point, there's nothing left to lose, so why not? Yeah, if you've got some ideas on how to make this whole thing work, how to make this whole civilization, monstrosity, chaostrophe, how to fix it, and get it to run straight and fly right, sure, I'll listen to your theories. Why not? Nothing to lose. All right. Thanks for...
I always like to end on a positive note, so here is a rousing, uplifting song which is guaranteed to cheer you up. When you attend a funeral, it is sad to think that sooner or later those you love will do the same for you. And you may have thought it tragic, not to mention other adjectives, to think of all the weeping they will do. But don't you worry, no more ashes, no more sackcloth, and an armband made of black cloth will someday nevermore adorn a sleeve. For if the bomb that drops on you gets your friends and neighbors too, there'll be nobody left behind to grieve, and we will all go together when we go. What a comforting fact that is to know. Universal bereavement, an inspiring achievement. Yes, we all will go together when we go. We will all go together when we go, all suffused with an incandescent glow. No one will have the endurance to collect on his insurance. Lloyds of London will be loaded when they go. We will all fry together when we fry. We'll be French fried potatoes by and by. There will be no more misery when the world is our rotisserie. Yes, we all will fry together when we fry. We will all bake together when we bake. There'll be nobody present at the wake. With complete participation in that brand incineration, nearly 3 billion hunks of well-done steak. We will all char together when we char, and let there be no moaning of the bar. Just sing out a Te Deum when you see that ICBM, and the party will be come as you are. We will all burn together when we burn. There'll be no need to stand and wait your turn. When it's time for the fallout and St. Peter calls us all out, we'll just drop our agendas and adjourn. We will all go together when we go, every Hottentot and every Eskimo. When the air becomes Uranus, we will all go simultaneous. Yes, we all will go together when we all go together. Yes, we all will go together when we go.